Hey, hey y'all. How's it going? Right. How is it going, guys? Good Lord. I am not together today at all. So I hope you'll excuse me. Again, I feel like my brain is on a hiatus for it, way too long. And it's kind of scary. Um, but I have a lot. I'm not, I know we all have a lot on our plates but I've had a lot on my plate. Um, and then we had a freaking blizzard last week. Okay. We had a blizzard in the bayou. So, I mean, who does that? Okay. We are not built for this shit whatsoever. So, hey, it's so good to see you guys though. I'm so like it's such a relief, you know. Mm. Right. And then I see all my mess back there. Anyways. Oh, I didn't dance in the snow. I just tried not to fall. Right? I just really was like, "Okay, wait, this stuff's slippery." I remember whenever, uh, I think the first time I went on a plane ride, right? Because mom kept trying to get me to go on trips. She was like, "Wherever, just you gotta get in a plane." And I was like, "I'm not getting in a plane." I was scared of planes. They're still not my favorite, but I've come to terms with them. And, we went to Tennessee, Knoxville, and, it was, I had my little boy and my little girl, and my little girl, she was like it reminded me of, Christmas Story, with the big Eskimo gear on, and she was, like, 18 months old, and don't get me wrong, the girl would not walk. She could, but she would not walk until she was 13 months old. I was like, "Come on, Ashlyn, come on, girl." And, I mean, she was not how when you put your child on your hip, um, they usually clench, they'll, like, hold on, not mine. No, I was hanging on to her, I was like, "Come on, Ash." Anyways, she was just, she did it in her own time, and I mean, I get that now, but to see her in her little snowsuit, I guess you could say, 17-degree weather because we went up I don't even know the name of the mountain, but anyways, we went up, and, that's the day I learned that, snow equals precipitation, okay? Because the whole way back to the hotel was, like, an hour, and I was freezing my butt off, and, I mean, the heater was blowing in the vehicle that we rented, but still, snow equals wet, equals your jeans are gonna be wet, okay? That's what I learned, so I don't know about snow angels. I was like, "Do I trust this stuff?" The way that everything's been going lately, I'm like, "But is it real?" You know what I mean? But is it real? Can I trust it? Anyways, I'm just pulling your leg. Well, I'm being serious, kinda. Hey, Trace, and hey again, Donna. Hope you're feeling better. Hey, Miss Honeychurch. Diane L. My daughter was 13 months when she walked, right. I don't know, my son, he was almost 10 months old, and I was like I mean, now thinking back, I mean, I wasn't rushing him, but I would help. I'd hold on to his little hands, and just kinda let him do whatever he did. But, I mean, looking back at a 9-month-old now, I'm like, "That is too little." Those are babies. No, don't walk at 9 months old. Jesus. And that kid, my son, right? I was like I mean, it was my first time being a mom, but I was like, "He is hyper." He is a very busy little boy, and he is, and he was, and we are. Runs in my genes, turns out. But, it's so they're night and day, you know, um, because she was just he wanted to not get into everything. He wasn't a digger. She's a carpet. You know how they'll sit there and they'll just, like, find the things, or just I don't know what, but Zach, he was on the run. Ashlyn, she was just she's very observant. She reads the room. And, it's interesting. Oops, uh, error. Uh-oh. I hope it's not on my end. Aaron, if it's an error, I don't even know what that means. Jump out and come back in. If it's me, I'll jump out and I'll come back in, allegedly. I'll try to. Hey, Janetta. How you doing, girl? And Miss Emily, I'm sorry, hold on. Hey, Carolina. Hey, Roxy. Doom, doom, shh, doom, doom, shh. Roxy. I'll just say Roxy. I'm sure you get Roxanne, right? You can turn on the red light. Oh, hey, Huggy Bear. How are you today? How's y'all's week been? Has it been blizzarding at your house? And if so, is it normal? We're gonna have another Arctic blast, the beginning of February, this beginning of February. And right now, like, it started raining earlier. I can't believe it's not doing it right now. It says it's going to. But it's like freaking 64. Okay. Last week it was 17 and 11. I was like 11. What? That is bonkers. I mean, and it stayed on the ground. Like, it snowed here before. It'll snow like kind of every year, but it doesn't stick usually. When I was growing up, I remember me and my brother, we made a snowman and it was brown and it had like, grass and stuff hanging out of it and everything. So it wasn't like white, you know what I mean? It wasn't the classic snowman. So, but, my bonus kids weren't here. They were at their mom's this week, and it was just kinda, but I did, like, I walked around in it, and I did not a pre-record. I videoed it, just talking to the thing, and I was supposed to upload it, but I hadn't, and that was supposed to be I'm like, "Is it too late now?" I feel so just behind. And so, Megan's here, thank gosh, right? Thank you. Let me pull her up. Let me bring her on up. Well,
Hi there.
welcome to the dungeon. No, you doing good? Hey, it looks good.
Oh, thanks.
It does.
I got a new camera and a light, and um,
Wow.
all courtesy of my sponsor, Revolutionary Media. So I'm pretty
Wow.
excited about
Oh, wow. Well, that's cool. Wow. Y'all go subscribe to Megan.
it.
You know what I mean? Like, just please. You won't regret it. It's free.
It
It's
is totally
free.
free.
Yeah, and you can and whenever if she makes you mad, you can just unsubscribe.
That's right, exactly. And
That's
people
where
do it
we
all the
will the
time.
power.
It's
Or
so
YouTube will
funny.
do it for you sometimes, a
That's
lot of
true.
times.
That's true. They can
Yeah.
do that.
Mick Spunky says I'm
So
number 1.
yeah, I really appreciate being able to connect with your channel people. You've got great people over here, and I
They
appreciate
love
it
you
when we
too.
can share information because this thing is so much bigger and deeper than any one or two or three or five people can cover everything. And
Yeah,
I do watch a bunch of your videos whenever I'm like, oh, I didn't know about that.
girl.
It's
I'm
there's
sorry.
just a lot. There's a lot.
I'm sorry, and I didn't get to watch your one today. I want to. Was in the
Oh,
name.
it's just the shortest one, but honestly, I really get like not to I always welcome comments. I always welcome questions. I'm always happy to answer whatever I can
Mhm.
answer in a qualified manner. But it bugs me when I get asked the same question over and over. And it's probably new people, to be fair. I should just be fair
Mhm.
about that. But asking, like, why is she being called Vallow in court? She married Chad.
Oh,
Why isn't she Daybell? And I get so tired of that question. So I made a little short 10-minute video that
you're gonna
basically
have to do it
says,
again.
if you want to change your name, you have to
Mhm.
do it legally. You have to take your marriage certificate to the Social Security office. And at the
Mhm.
time she married Chad, she was defrauding the Social Security Administration.
Yeah.
So she probably didn't want to do it legally. So legally, her name is Vallow. That's why her whole trial in April, she was referred to as Lori Vallow. But now she's been asked, or she continues to ask if she can be Daybell. She keeps signing everything Daybell. She refers to it as the Daybell defense team. So
It
Judge Bresky last Friday on the 10th finally said, okay, fine, you can be referred to as Daybell. So
She won. She won
it's
her
official.
damn name, okay? That she
Yeah, one
earned. Earned.
one little thing in her corner, which I have a feeling that
Will be
she
it.
is that's going to be like a short-lived victory. Like it's going to be one of the only ones that she gets because all the rest of the stuff she's asking for is so ridiculous. So
Yeah, I get tired or not tired, but there's those questions that you just can't they're hypothetical or rhetorical questions, and I'm just like, I don't have an answer for that, just maybe
yeah,
use your noggin. I don't know. I mean, or your
yeah,
guess is as good as mine, or there's different ways to hypothesize about what could be going on in that woman's brain. Who? I don't think she knows. I don't know what's going on in my brain half the time,
it's
much
it,
less assessing hers. She is a wackadoodle a little
yeah,
bit.
it's a bag of cats in there. So there's no. I keep saying like,
That's a good one.
yeah, we want to try to make sense of it, right? But you can't make sense of the nonsensical, and
That's what Paul said.
you can't make reasonable people understand someone who is unreasonable,
Right.
because we look at Lori from our lens and we say from our lens, she looks like a kook. But, she obviously sees, I've said this before, like she has an alternate reality.
Yep. She must stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's safer.
anyway,
It's safe for her to stay there. I would if I were her and I did the just horrible things that she's done, I would I would wanna stay there too, probably, I would think,
yep.
but that's me, and another thing I realized that is going on is that, we have compassion, we have feelings, we have empathy, and so we think it through like, "Oh, how we because we can empathize with people, we can put ourselves in their shoes,
Yeah.
and that's not what's going on, in people like her.
Right.
They're not thinking about how others feel, obviously. They don't care. She doesn't care.
Yeah.
She cares about herself, and that's it.
Yeah, she wants what she wants, and that is the thing that she has consistently displayed over
Yeah,
time, is that she will do whatever it takes for her to get what she wants, and she does
mhm,
not care how it affects anyone else.
yeah, and, I mean, she's so quick to be like, "And we will stand before Jesus," and I'll be like, I told you so. I won't say I told you so." That's what she told Colby. "I won't say that I told you so. I just will tell you that I love you." Uh, first off, don't think I'll be continuing to go, ma'am. You'll be, no. I don't get that part. I'm just like, so she thinks she's what she's Rob Wood said this to Summer. He said, "What your sister has done, she thinks she has done in righteousness." And I mean, I've reminded myself of that this whole time. And when I remind myself of that, I'm just like, so how is it righteous then? And then is there more people with the same mindset? Turns out, yes,
Lots
there
of
are.
them,
That's
unfortunately.
scary.
It
That's
is that, and
scary.
I think you and I have both said, like, this is why you and I continue to talk about this, is
Mhm.
because it's not just Chad and Lori, there are more people out
Dude,
there. And we just recently learned that, Ruby Frankie was one of these people who had the same ideas. Now, she didn't
mhm.
know Chad and Lori, or at least we don't have any evidence that they knew each other.
There's
But
connectors, right?
that that damn book, though,
The
Visions of
damn book.
Glory.
Is it
That's
the
what
book?
ties
Is it
these.
the man behind the book? Is it both? Is it what is
I
it?
think
And
it's a little bit of both.
I do too. I just someone who's teaching people how to astral project whenever holding callings in the church, it just doesn't add up. I'm just like, how can you say one thing and do another? Just like I have noticed a lot in the church this whole time, and it
Yep.
sucks. But I don't know if you know who Wordwise is, the channel Wordwise. She
I
is
know I've
amazing.
seen or heard that
Oh,
around. I just don't know if I've ever been there.
she's awesome. She's okay. How Dr. John and people of the like are psychoanalyzing people,
Mhm.
this is what she does for a profession. I'm not gonna get it right, but she is I don't know if it's science fiction writer or I don't remember. So I'm sorry, but I mean, she is analyzing these books, all of Chad Daybell's books. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, I've
When you
told.
listen, she breaks it down and
Yeah.
it's like psychoanalyzing their writing. She's doing it to Visions of Glory right now. And I'm like, oh, I
Mm.
can't wait for the second one to come out. She's
Yeah,
called him out the whole time. There's so many inconsistencies in there, not just doctrinal,
right.
but just and I knew it. I was like, it's
Well,
not I
I
don't get an experience through this book. I don't of course, I'm not looking at it through that lens either, but
so I can tell you from 2 different perspectives, and forgive me if I've already said this, if I'm repeating myself. You
oh,
guys don't come to our channels if you don't want to hear repeated information.
oh yeah, Imma do it.
But I can see it from 2 different perspectives, right? Because I read Visions of Glory as a full-on, all-in believing member of the LDS Church. That was my
But
first
why?
encounter with that
But
book.
why? Why? What prompted you to read it? I
Well,
remember
it
you saying
it
this.
was given to me by a class member. I was teaching the gospel doctrine class, which for those who are unfamiliar with Mormonism, it's the adult Sunday school. So first hour is like the main communion meeting, second hour is adult Sunday school, and we would focus on one topic for an entire year, and we would
I
go
couldn't do
through,
it.
each book of scripture. So when I
Mhm.
started teaching gospel doctrine, we were in the Old Testament, and I taught for 6 years. So I taught the Old Testament twice, I taught the New Testament twice, I taught the Book of Mormon 1 year, and I taught church history 1 year. Um, so I I was all in on Mormon doctrine, like understanding it, but only from the perspective of where the church wants us to see it. Because
Doctrinal, right.
right, they give you. I'm sorry, my dogs are always their tails are always just going to be
They
so
hurt.
loud.
I mean, I
I'm
had
sorry.
and they would whip my
Um,
legs.
yeah.
They're
So
strong.
the church gives us a lesson manual. They tell us to stick very
Mhm.
closely to it. They give us the resources and the materials that they want us to reference. And then they tell us, don't go anywhere else looking for more information.
Oh,
Just stick
don't
with
do
this
that.
manual that we have written and that our attorneys have approved, basically. Okay.
Yeah, Kurt
So,
McConkie, right.
yeah. Yeah. So I think this was my 4th year of teaching gospel doctrine. So I was teaching church history, and there's a section of church history where Joseph Smith talks about the second coming and the end times and everything. And so, I made a
United Order.
disclaimer at the beginning of my lesson where I said, we're not going to be going to any outside resources to talk about speculations or Mormon rumors about
Yeah,
the
Julie
end times,
Rowe. Sit
because
down,
there are so
girl.
many of them out there. We could go
She's
off
like,
on a
"But wait,
million tangents.
you were so and so, and I was such and such." That's
Right.
another thing that goes rampant through this. That's
Yeah.
one thing
So,
I don't know I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
no,
Remind
no,
me
you're
to
fine.
ask about
Come
that
back
with
around.
Ruby. Yeah.
Yeah, so after the lesson that Sunday, somebody came up to me and said, "I have a book. I really think you're going to love it. You should read it." and it was inside a manila envelope. So she clearly did not want to be seen passing this book out at church.
Wow.
But this was around 2013, 2014. I don't remember exactly. It's the time frame is a little fuzzy because it was a weird time for me. But
It's about that
anyway,
time.
I took the book, I read it, I absolutely devoured it. It was at a time where in our family and in the location where I was in the church, there was a lot of talk about near death experiences. And here's the reason Mormons love near death experience books, because we as Mormons, there are always so many people trying to tell us that what we believe isn't right, it isn't true. And so we're always looking for confirmation from any outside source, any source outside the church that corroborates what we believe. And that's what Visions of Glory and not Visions of Glory, but near death experience
Yeah.
books did. Because a lot of times you'll hear people talking about they see a white light, they go down a tunnel, they're greeted by their loved ones. It's a peaceful, light-filled space. And that's exactly what Mormons believe is going to happen right at the moment that we die, is that we're
That makes
going
sense.
straight to heaven, we're going to see Jesus Christ, and that we're going to be greeted by our loved ones. And so
Lori's gonna have a
Mormons
line.
love near-death experience books because they confirm what Mormons believe. And so that was where
Mhm.
I was. I was like, hey, cool, this is another thing that confirms what we believe. And in the back of the Visions of Glory book, and this is something a lot of people don't pick up on, the author or Tom Harrison, whoever, decided to include visions from other people
Mhm.
that corroborate what's in the book. And one of those people
Yep.
was
They all do.
Lorenzo Snow, who was a former prophet of the church. And so he does
And the
this
cards
as a
too.
way to corroborate what he says in the book, to say, like, look, I'm not the only one who says this is what's going to happen. It was specifically talking about the earthquake, the flood, and the sickness. That's what Lorenzo Snow's dream or vision of the second coming of Jesus Christ was. So not only that, but Tom Harrison also mentions that he has a friend who is an apostle in the church who basically told him, wow, these are really special visions, but sort
Keep
of
it to
glosses
yourself,
over the
huh?
fact that the apostle says you should keep these to yourself and not share them with anyone. Well, as soon as the apostle dies, what's he do? Publishes the book.
Yeah,
So
God
that's
told him to. He
right.
got yeah.
Right. So that's the reason why this book is so compelling to mainstream members of the LDS Church. It's also the type of thing where we get told as members that we need to go out and seek more spiritual experiences, more
Further
light
light
and
and
knowledge,
knowledge,
further light and knowledge from reliable, reputable sources, right?
which
Which,
in Mormonism is insular. It's the echo chamber.
yeah,
So
exactly. So if you've
you
got a
guys
book that
support
quotes a
one
prophet,
another like crazy. Y'all are I don't even know if y'all know y'all do it. I'm just like, good Lord. I mean,
well,
it
no, it never was. I was never aware of it when I was in the church that that's what we were
Mhm.
doing. I wasn't really aware of it until probably the 2016 election when I
Wow.
when I started talking to my other true believing member friends who I greatly respected and thought were very
Mhm.
educated people.
I know.
I started trying to talk about the election from a neutral ground standpoint, objectively comparing one candidate and the other,
Yeah.
objectively looking at their character and the things they'd done in the past and things like that. And there were
Yeah.
people who I respected a great deal who refused to hear anything negative about Trump. And I was like, well, I
Right.
mean, it's okay to be
Right.
critical of each candidate. Let's
No
absorb
matter
all the
what.
information and not just put up a wall. So I started realizing that there was a willful ignorance that was happening.
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in an echo chamber, you know?
This is it's a little freaky though.
Yeah.
I I mean, whenever, because you're like, "Oh, whoa, what did I just walk into?" And you kinda
Yeah.
have to read the room and basically say, "Hmm, okay, how do I navigate around all this?" It's a lot of mental gymnastics whenever it's like sustaining the prophet or the leader,
Hmm.
you know? It's interesting to say the least. I mean, it's these are just things that I've noticed. One of I told you before that I had met someone early on. There's not many people that I would even open up to a little or trust, because I didn't know who I wasn't able to stop long enough either.
Right.
And, she came along and then, we would just kinda throw stuff back and forth, and I mean, she was out of the church, but still in that mindset. And I mean, it was a very interesting dynamic. It was. I mean, she was like, "Oh, wait, do you only go to trusted sources?" And I'm like, "I go to all kinds of sources."
Yeah.
And it was like I was, having unprotected sex. I was like, "Girl, I'm okay." I grab what I need and I leave the rest. I don't form my opinion just based off of one account. I mean, I
Yeah.
kinda just fill it out. I mean, because it doesn't do justice to the victims, and that's my whole
Right.
thing. Or to
Yeah.
anybody, really. It doesn't do justice, period, if it's, like, not right. If it's
Yeah.
not the truth, then why sit there and try to force it? That who does that help? It'll make the person, that you're trying to paint the picture of, it's not correct. It's not right. It
Yeah.
bothers me.
Yeah. I agree with you. Well, so just talking about visions of glory, that was just like a little bit to say, like, this is why Mormons love. Sorry, sorry,
Oh,
sorry,
no.
sorry. My dang desk. I have one of those desks that come like, "Hi
You do.
everyone, how are you? Look at that."
The elevator.
um,
You saw it here
it's
first.
like it has a lock on it, but it doesn't, like, my computer's
Yeah.
sitting on it. So sorry about that, guys.
That was cool. It's
So
like, I wanna be fancy.
I don't want to be here anymore.
You're laughing.
Anyways, just that's the reason why Mormons love the book so much and give it so much credence, is
Yeah.
because it does sort of like confirm a little bit for us, like
Yeah.
the things that we believe, and then we're like, see, look, there's another resource. It's not just the church that's telling us that it's real. And then, the whole idea that I had to say that I really appreciated is that when I shared the book with my sister, and it's my portal, and my sister said, no, this is an apostate book and here's why. And that I really appreciated that perspective, because it is really easy to get caught up in thinking, oh my gosh, this
Mhm.
is confirming what I believe. But then
Right.
my sister pointed out, um, she
Oh, good.
said, this has to be an apostate book, because this person's, like, in the end of the book, like during the gathering or whatever, their office is right next to Jesus Christ's office. And
That's oh,
Jesus Christ has to portal into his office, not the
yeah.
other way around. It's like, I'm
It's
like, Jesus is coming to me. And I was
inverted.
like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for pointing that out, because
Mhm.
now I know for sure this guy is just a self-aggrandizing, like, he wants, I'm so sorry, you guys. My dogs are
Oh,
so
no,
crazy
that
right now. He
I'm sure we
wants
have
it to be
American dogs.
true. And so therefore, the reason he wants it to be true is because it makes him look important. It makes him look like he's got some kind of a special in with the leaders of the
Mhm.
church,
And he
and
does.
that he's got some kind of special mission.
He
And
does.
this is the thing. It's like, if members of the church would look at it from that perspective and see, like, maybe I'll do a video that's just for LDS members to talk about that book in that light, to basically say, like, this guy is more of an apostate than I am. you know
I mean, yeah, it's like to get the not LDS message, really. I think to me, that's a good way to approach it because it's like, and if I were LDS or whatever, if I were whatever this guy's trying to sell me, and to look at it from a different lens, that's all. You're not going outside of your safety bubble. It's just, respecting and understanding and just seeking further light knowledge through other people's experiences and other people's perspectives. It's okay. It's what makes the whole world go round.
Yeah, I did
So
want to
I
point out
love that.
there. Yeah, I do too. There is a question up here that I saw go past. Carolina Hurtado says, I have a question. How does the LDS Church know Lorenzo Snow is a prophet, and everyone else who claims to be a prophet? Seriously, I'm curious to know. This is one of those things
I'm looking for it.
that people who are not members of the LDS Church probably don't understand. But if you know how the Pope is chosen, where all of the main leaders go into like a sequestered thing and they basically have a bunch of votes and there's white smoke and all of that. So,
Mm, I picture something so sinister. That's where I go. But
well, I
anyways,
mean, it's
outwardly.
honestly just kind of, I don't know. I'll let you come to your own conclusions how you feel about it. But basically, before Joseph Smith died, he did not make any sort of a like succession plan. I don't know if he
Yeah.
believed he was going to live forever. I don't know if he believed Jesus Christ was going to come before he died, but definitely him going to jail and being assassinated by a mob was not in the cards. That was not on
And
his bingo card.
the whole fact that he did the dog whistle at the I was just like, "Come on now."
Yeah,
That is so Freemason right there. Just I'm sorry,
right,
it is. It
right.
just straight up is. I
Right.
didn't
So
come up with
Joseph
it.
Smith claimed that he was a prophet of God basically because he claimed that he went into a grove of trees to pray about which church he should join. He claimed that God and Jesus Christ appeared to him and told him none of the churches were right and that they all sort of like draw near to me with their lips but their hearts are far from me, quoting scripture kind of stuff. And so he told Joseph Smith, like, don't join any of the churches, just hang on and wait, you'll get more instructions. Then Joseph Smith says the angel Moroni appeared to him and said, you're going to be a prophet. You're going to speak God to God. You're going to get direction directly from God. And I'll show you where this religious record is buried and we'll give you the power to translate it. But you have to wait 4 years. So 4 years goes by. He
I
goes
got
to the
problems.
Hill Cumorah. He supposedly gets the plates, which I heard a really gross story about that. Anyway, so many rabbit holes we could go down here. I'm
Share.
trying to just gloss over all of this, right? So that's why Joseph Smith believed he and taught that he was a prophet of God, because he believed he spoke directly to God, got revelation from God of all of the direction, how the church was supposed to be formed and run and all of that. His revelations are put together in a collection called the Doctrine and Covenants. And that's like the fourth book of Mormon scripture. So we have the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of
Quad.
Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and don't even get me started on the Pearl of Great Price. That's a rabbit hole for
Okay.
another day.
It's just
Um,
nuts, man.
so that's
It's
why
different.
Joseph Smith taught that he was a prophet. Now, he did not know he was going to be killed. So he didn't make any sort of a plan for like what happens when I die, who
Ooh.
becomes the next prophet of the church, who's going to lead the church. So basically, there were two dudes who were saying, I believe I should be the next prophet. One of them was Sidney Rigdon, who was a close friend of Joseph's, who helped Joseph do some of his translating and covering up whatever needed to be covered up. And then there was Brigham Young. Brigham Young was also a close friend of Joseph's. He was in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, but it
They
was
shared
sort of like
lives.
these two wanted to duke it out. In addition, there was a third faction of people who thought that Joseph's son, Joseph the third, should be the
Yeah.
prophet, that it should go down the line of family succession that way. So the people who believed in Joseph III broke off and formed their own faction of the church that was referred to for a while as the reorganized LDS Church.
Yeah.
They're the ones who own
They're
property
the
in
most
Independence.
normal. I
Yeah,
mean, when I was just kinda looking at the 3, I was like, "Oh, so this the mainstream one is the ooh," you know? I mean, the
yeah,
mainstream one is BYU, Brigham Young.
right.
It's basically a take well, go ahead, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, so there was a meeting where basically Sidney Rigdon, and so those guys broke off and did their own thing, right? But there was a meeting
Mhm.
where Sidney Rigdon and Brigham Young were basically going to each present what they thought would be good for the future of the church and then let the people decide who was going to lead the church.
Oh,
And
wow.
the legend goes, and I say legend for a reason, the legend
'Cause it's
goes that
still going on today.
right, in that
Kinda, yeah.
meeting, Sidney Rigdon got up and gave his speech, and people weren't really warm to it. They didn't really like what he had to say. Then Brigham Young got up, and there is this rumor, which the Mormon Stories does an entire episode on this. They call
Mhm.
it the Transfiguration of Brigham Young. You should totally go look it up. It's fascinating. But there was this rumor that went around that when Brigham Young got up to the pulpit, he looked and sounded like Joseph Smith. Now, if you've ever seen
Whoa.
any likeness of Brigham Young and any likeness of Joseph Smith, those two dudes look nothing alike, okay? I often
Yeah.
refer to Brigham Young as a short, bald, bigoted, whatever. I don't like to finish that sentence. But he was not attractive. He was not anywhere close to as tall as Joseph Smith or anything like that. So people claimed that it was this miraculous vision, that he sounded like the prophet Joseph Smith in his voice, and he looked like the prophet Joseph Smith at the pulpit, and there was a ring of white light around him.
Oh
And that
God.
was their confirmation that they knew that Brigham Young was supposed to lead the next church. Now, in reality, I
He
think there
probably
was
just
only
arm
one
wrestled.
person who really said that that was the case, but then other people read that recounting, that person's recounting was like, "You know what? He did kind of look like Joseph. He did kind of sound like Joseph."
Oh
And so
no.
it just sort of grew into this like
Folie
confirmation
et deux,
bias.
folie de masses is what it
Yes.
not dumbasses, it's folie de masses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Folie
And
folie de
so
anyway.
then just I can even say in the journal of my fourth great grandfather, he makes
Mm.
reference to this meeting. He says, I was there. I saw Brigham Young looking like Joseph Smith. And, so I can confirm Brigham Young was supposed to be the next prophet. Okay. So
Mhm.
that's how that succession happened. Now, Brigham Young was not dumb. He was very smart, and he wanted to hang on to his power for as long as possible. And so, he put his friends in the Quorum of 12 Apostles, just like Joseph Smith did. And then they came up with a plan that whomever was the most senior member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles would then
They do
take
that
over
now.
as prophet of the church. And that's how they do it now. So
Mhm.
when Brigham Young died, the next person to become prophet was John Taylor, who happened to be the most senior member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Yes, we do realize that this sounds crazy now to
Mhm.
non-Mormon, non-cult members, right? But back then, when you're indoctrinated into this and you're
Yeah,
brainwashed into it from birth and it's
2nd
7 generations
generation.
of your family
Yeah.
and nobody else in your family has left the church, it's very easy
Mhm.
to be
It's
duped into it.
no all be all. It is,
Yeah.
what are y'all doing over there is what it how I picture it and how I've tried to, put myself in your shoes or you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
as much as I can.
Yeah.
I know I stick out like a damn sore thumb, but anyways.
So when you listen to the leaders of the church now talk about how the next prophet gets chosen, what they will say is, well, we pray to the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, prays to God, and God reveals to us who the next prophet is supposed to be. But it's really the seniority succession. And the prayer meeting that they have is really just a formality because they all know who it's going to be anyway. But the way they talk about it is that they all get together in the temple, they pray separately, and then they pray together, and they all just magically come to the same conclusion. And it's such a beautiful spiritual experience because we all then know that the person who is the senior most member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles is supposed to be the prophet, and we just all accept it.
Allegedly.
So when people say like we know who the next prophet is going to be, that's wise because it's like, well, whoever's the most senior member, if they don't die before
Wait.
they get to take over. Yes,
Right,
ma'am.
right, Charlene? I got you, boo. So, but didn't they, like, change that just not too long ago where I wanna say it was, Christofferson? Todd Christofferson? Wasn't
The
he,
Todd
like, in
Christopherson.
the 70 and then he was, like, up in the apostle and then he got slammed back down, demoted, whatever?
Yeah, well, no, Dieter F. Uchtdorf got demoted.
Uchtdorf,
He
okay,
was in
I
the
knew
first presidency,
okay,
and then he got, we say demoted. He was always still considered to be an apostle, but usually once you get promoted to the first president, you stay there, right? And
oh
so
my
that's why like the three at the top,
ascend, he descended just a
right?
little bit.
So the three at the top
Mhm,
are like the president and the first counselor and the second counselor,
mhm,
right? And then there are the
okay.
12 apostles. So it's a total of 15 men who lead the church. But um, what I was going to say is that, oh, shoot, Quorum of the 12 apostles, we're talking about succession.
And
And it's
then
just really like, okay, if somebody dies
singing.
before it's their turn to take over, then they never get to be the prophet. So
So
that's
you snooze,
why,
you
you
lose
know,
kinda
people
thing?
are
Like,
saying it's going to be Dallin Oaks next, and then Bednar after that. And he was kind of
I
the
don't
youngest one to come in, so it's
I
possible
think he
that he
gets
could be
younger as we go.
he
I'm
could
like, "How
possibly
old is
be,
he?"
I don't know exactly, but he
No,
could
I
possibly
was
be the prophet for a
questioning.
really long time, is
Well,
basically
yeah.
what all that means.
It's like I've looked at his wife and I'm like, "Well, what's going on here?" What's the
Yeah, I like
you
to
know?
refer to him as Susan's husband.
He's a statistician, that's all I know,
He
and he
is
likes to go to Silicon Slopes.
he
I
is
don't
the
speak.
most narky leader of the church I've ever seen in my life.
Mm,
His behavior is just blatantly,
judgmental looking? Like,
malignantly grandiose and
mm,
self-important.
okay. So he basically rides with his nose up in the air like some people in your family.
There are
I'm sorry. Not you.
Yep,
Just
yep. No, there are it's well documented that he wants everybody to bow to his
Mhm.
power, and have even
Oh,
been several meetings when he's like chastised people for the way that they worship or the way that they whatever.
what?
Yeah, it's
That's
it's
not
bad. I did a little, I don't think you're on TikTok. I did a little TikTok about it, but
I
anyway,
am, I just never
there
go
is
there.
plenty of information out there about how rude and arrogant and harmful that man is. And
I'm gonna
the
have to
most
check it out.
notable of which is that when an apostle comes into the room, they expect everyone to stand for them. And
I
then
will when they
when
start
it
respecting people. How about that? That's
right.
about how I feel about everybody, all these jerks, okay? Not just there, everywhere that just feel like, yeah, anyways, they put their pants my mama would say, that he puts his pants on one leg at a time just like I do, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
mean, you just have to like anyways, you
Yeah, so
can't
the
be like that.
story is that when the meeting's over, the apostle should be the first one to stand and leave, and everyone else remains seated. And at the end of the meeting, the camera is on Susan and Susan's husband. And Susan starts to stand up, but then she looks next to her and sees that her husband has not yet stood. So she's sort of like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm going to sit back down." And she like waits for
She
him,
was reading
and
the
then
room
he
maybe.
stands up, and then she's like, "Okay, now I can stand up." But
Oh,
that's the
no,
kind
I
of stuff
wonder if
he
he does that
expects.
to her at home or if that's how it not he don't do anything, but I
Word
wonder if
is
that's
that's the
how it
truth. Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was
Mm.
somebody, and I wish I could remember the creator's name, but you can search it. Somebody just did a video on Bednar stories, and she had people like send in their worst Bednar
Mhm.
stories,
Oh my
and
god.
she
Oh,
does
yeah.
like a couple of 20-minute long videos on these stories. So yeah,
I've read some old forums, how they would do, like, Radio Free Mormon, you'll go find those old, um, forums is what I call them. But you'll
yeah,
just there was one that I saw, and it was about, McConkie, and I was like, "Oh my lord." I mean, they were just going to town. I was like, "I love Mormons." As far they're like, "Bap, bap, bap." I mean, they can whip that tongue, boy, and it's like a righteous and I mean, without cussing, 'cause I use my cursive language, um, which isn't always great, but, I mean, y'all do it with such eloquence and without even batting an eyelash. Anyways, I told y'all my brain's not working today,
no,
so
that's fine. And you and I were talking about how Rusty, the current CEO of the corporation, he is just so old that he really should
yeah.
not be leading a global organization that's worth $250 billion. And I
No.
was saying to now Kresha hasn't seen Lord of the Rings, but I
Or
was
Harry
telling her
Potter.
that,
Just
or Harry
saying.
Potter, but I was telling her that Rusty reminds me of butter scraped over too much bread. He just is looking a little bit like he's had the ring of power a little bit too long.
I wonder where that ring goes. I'm just saying.
Well,
Just
it's gonna go to
hypothetical,
it's gonna go
so
to
I don't wanna know.
to Dallin H. Hoax. Dallin Hoax.
Right? I mean, all I remember, reading about
Stop.
hoax was the, alleged, oh my gosh, zapping people, and I'm not trying to be
Oh,
insensitive,
yeah,
electroshock
the electric
at
shock therapy.
BYU, allegedly, whatever, I'm just like, "What?"
Okay, I
Anyway,
can still hear you, but I have to let my dogs out or they're going to literally go insane. So
but
you see
who let the
this
dogs out?
stuff happening over here? Be right
You know,
back. I can still hear you.
I've gotta, make some jokes, right? Oh my gosh. Oh, I love Exmolex too. I look, these people, Jason, when we watch TV and, it'll just they automatically come on or whatever, and he'll be like, "Oh, no." I mean, he'll be like, "No, it was Joseph Smith that da da da," and I'm just like, "What are you even talking about?" And he's like he'll just pick it up, and I'm like, "I am so sorry, Jason. I play this so much that you can argue whether a point in Mormonism, and I'm just like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We're not Mormon, okay? Whatever." I had to immerse myself in this culture, and it is a culture shock. It would be, I would say, equivalent to, like, going to Bangkok. You know, it's been a culture shock completely. But it also, I believe it helps to kind of point out things that my friend Jen, she would say we'd have the same paper, and she would say, "Oh my god, I need to read it." And or she'll say, "I read it." And what stood out, you'll have to tell me what stood out to you because it's the same to me.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And so it got me thinking about Gabe Bonilla and how whenever he was minimizing, in my opinion, from my perspective, he was minimizing Lori saying, "I will destroy you." Okay,
Hmm.
well, destroy equals murder. Okay, obviously we
Yeah.
know that now. However, I'm like, so was he being innocent? And just like I'm used to seeing all this, being a bishop and all, I'm used to seeing all this, so therefore it doesn't stand out. Like destroy is just normal language. Like you're, just uh what do you call that? No, what is it? Whenever you get used to seeing like violent things, you are
Oh, you get desensitized.
that word, yeah.
Hmm.
So maybe it wasn't, like to me, I'm just like, oh hell yeah, in the
Yeah.
context of everything. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Okay, so I
different.
had to look this up because it was bugging me. Um, so this is what's going to happen. So Dallin Oaks was ordained in 1984, making him the longest serving apostle. So he will be next. After Oaks, it would be Holland. He was ordained 10 years later in 94. And then after Holland, it would be Eyring, but I don't think he's still going to be alive at that point. And then Uchtdorf, and then Bednar. But the reason people think Bednar is going to be prophet for such a long time is because they're speculating that just based on their age that a lot of these dudes are going to pass on before they get a
Oh,
chance to
I
serve
know
as
who it.
prophet.
I know who it's gonna be. It's gonna be Tim Ballard. Okay, so what he was ordained by Tom
Yeah,
Harrison and Ken Krogh. All right, y'all, don't laugh. And he's gonna be the president, so he's gonna run church and state.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways, tell your friends. Anyways, y'all.
Yeah, there's still something to all of those rumors, and I'm glad you're digging into it because I don't have the brain space for it.
I don't either,
Um,
and that's probably why I'm running out right now. That's probably
yeah,
it's like, what? 'Cause it's like it's just a lot. It really is a lot. But this is where Lori inconveniences my life. Whenever her damn trials come up every damn year, her and her husband, okay, 3 years in a
yeah,
row now, I'm sure there's gonna be a 4th year in a row, right? Because she just knock out a whole damn decade, okay? Lori
mhm.
Damn Daybell. That's her name. That's the name I gave her. It's Lori Damn Daybell. Um, because she's, gotta get her law on. So, anyways,
Yeah.
but I mean, I forgot what I
I
was gonna say, but
Okay, well, I just wanted to say just because people were asking, in the comments about the ages of all of these, this
Hmm.
gerontocracy that's leading the church. So Dallin Oaks is
Oh,
92 right now. Holland is 84. Eyring is 91. Uchtdorf
he's
is
a big boy.
84. And Bednar is 72. So he's the youngest by a lot. By 12 years, he's the youngest.
Yeah, and he's going
Um,
backwards in time, so
I mean, sorry, I should say he's the youngest senior apostle because Renland is 72, Gong is 71, and Suarez, who just came in, is 66.
just Renlin and Gong. Renlin and Ballard are zombies. Legit. Those 2 were named in
Hmm.
the infamous Reddit email. And I mean, it's just
Wow.
interesting. It's just interesting, right? That and, Renland, I already forgot, y'all. I don't know what's going on with me and my brain today. It's super bad today,
Yeah.
and I was in a horrible mood earlier, like, just and I don't know what came over me. It was crazy. I don't know if that hardly happens, like, where it just and it's just like, ugh, I don't know. It was just maybe I need to take a nap or something.
Miss Laura Whore, if you're nasty. I love it.
Laura Horror. Well, that's when Laura Horror was born. I was like,
Yeah.
"Who in the hell's who is Core Horror?" That was the craziest. Who remembers in here? Who remembers? Raise your hand, okay? Who remembers that recording during Chad Daybell's freaking preliminary hearing, and we're like they're, like, battling it out, clawing each other with their scripture. I was like, "What is this?
I
What
was
what am
not
I
there for that
witnessing right
one, so
now?"
I guess I'm
We
gonna have
weren't
to go
there.
watch it now.
We had to watch it on Zoom just like everybody else. Mom and Larry were in there, but, like, I mean, that's when it was introduced to us. That's when they played Melanie Gibb and Lori and Chad, where she had recorded
Oh,
them,
oh,
and
okay,
she
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"You
yeah,
calling
yeah.
me a core whore?" And she's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I'm calling you a core whore." And she was like, "Oh, I need an answer on this." And then she's like,
Yeah.
again, "We will stand there before Christ himself," and da da da, her whole spiel. I wonder if
Yeah,
she's
and
gonna
Melanie
tell the judge
was
and jury
like
that when they convict her ass for the
yeah,
umpteenth time.
yeah,
Sorry.
Melanie Gibb was like, "You're gonna have to answer," and Lori was like, "No, you're gonna have to answer."
You
It's
too
like
for what you
the
do
most
know, Mel.
ridiculous
That's
thing
bad. I have
ever.
it memorized. That's bad.
Oh, yeah, that you've
I've
heard it that
I
many
have
times.
consumed like, I threw myself in this case. Like, I watched
Yeah,
these things over and over again, and I told y'all I wasn't doing it right. I know I wasn't doing it right, and we are witnessing what's going on because I immersed myself in their crazy dark shit. Sorry,
yeah,
stuff. I mean, it
yeah,
is a brain it's so huge. It's so much. You need, like, people to write transcripts and stuff with all the with all the different people, uh,
yeah,
I mean, just within their little coven, like you say, or the group, just between, these their small little clique right here, but then you just go one more out and then holy crap,
yeah,
that's where freak flags are flying, you know? And
yeah,
that's it's scary. To me it is because one of the most, like, dangerous or intimidating things about this was, like, whenever this is before this even hit, you know, public media, it's like we knew that Uncle Charles, was murdered, and then I don't remember if, like, right now I don't, but I remember, like, it was just high alert, because it's like these things were coming to fruition, like, they were about to go, public or whatever, and then it's like once it did, it was right?
yeah, yeah,
That was crazy, but it was like, I would be outside, and I would see a car slow down, and I would legit I'm not playing, I would be ducking behind things like, "Why are they going so slow?"
yeah,
That's before Alex, was dead, but and I mean, does it bother you about I know that's probably a really personal question, I'm sorry, but I
No, you can
noticed that
ask, and
nobody
if
ever
it's too
asked,
personal,
and
say
I get
no.
it. It's like, I don't know, it's like I was able to just kinda chalk him off early in the game because he died, right? I still don't think it was natural, but whatever. It's neither here nor there. I just I'm really offended by the fact of how Summer, Janice, and all were like basically Summer, she's like, "We haven't been able to grieve my brother," and I'm like, "F your brother." I mean, that's to me, I'm just like, nobody, still to this day, nobody out of that little group of people, of his in-laws, have shown an empathetic anything towards Charles, and I
Yeah.
saw that for sure last week when they were there for the first time in almost a decade. Uh, why are they there? To me, that I'm like, "Okay, so you're on that side for sure." To me, it was just like, "Alright, you do you,
Yeah.
boo."
It's interesting to think about. I want to come back to this real quick because I saw a question and a comment go by that I wanted to,
Oh, you're
because we
good.
were talking about that call. So Rhonda says, or was being accused of arresting the scriptures. And then
Oh,
Donna
resting.
Allen says it's rested, like
WR.
WRESTED.
Mhm.
Donnell says
Yeah.
wrestling with the meaning, but I don't think that that's what they meant. What they
No.
meant was when you wrest the scriptures, you're misinterpreting them for your
Mhm.
own bias or for your own gain. I think
Which is
that was
yeah,
a
and
common thing that, you know,
that's why
people
Melanie
in that,
said the Church of the Devil, secret combinations, that's what that means. I
yeah,
didn't
and
really pick up on that, and I don't know what secret combinations are as an outsider. Later on,
so
I'm like, "They're doing this," and then I find out that, well, when a Mormon hears secret combinations, they know it's exactly this word over here,
yeah,
like what I come to, to us outsiders. It's very foreign, and it actually buys them space, plausible deniability.
yeah, because people
It
don't know what
buys
you're talking
them
about, so
it
it's
gets
harder
them
for
off
them to
of
challenge.
the death penalty. It can throw the death penalty on somebody. It really does cause a barrier to outsiders, the
Yeah,
own language, it's very
and that's on
it's
purpose.
very interesting. It is. I do believe it is much on purpose. It's intentional.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's sad because, we're not bad, turns out, but it's like that fear-driven, we are the true one true church, one true gospel, and then, us outsiders, we're all Gentiles, and
mhm,
we don't have the truth, and so
yeah,
it's just such a narcissistic, system, in my opinion. It's like, it reeks as it just and I mean, thank God it doesn't attach to everybody or, it doesn't sink into everybody, more than like you're not like that. But then I look at Lori and I'm just like, "Well, good Lord, how can" I mean, you got Barry, you got Janice, you got all these people who are, like, very skin deep, right? And then it's like, well, no wonder she is the way she is. No wonder,
yeah,
It's very interesting because it's not just the family dynamics, it's also the church system, that the family dynamic belong to. It's very I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It runs deep. It runs real deep and
yeah. So
layers.
there's a couple of things. One thing that's really interesting,
Mhm.
that I had a conversation on my channel on Wednesday. I released an episode where I talked with a guy named John, and he has an account on TikTok called House of Deconstruction. He's an ex-Mormon, and he talks about the fact that the Mormon church breeds narcissists.
Yes.
And I was like, whoa, hold on, I've got to talk to you. So I had him on my channel. We had an amazing conversation. And it's kind of what I've been saying all along, but he gave me better words to talk about it.
Okay.
That basically, when you're raised to believe that you are a member of God's only true church, there is a level of entitlement that goes along with that.
Yes.
And when you
Totally.
listen to Dr. Ramani talk about how narcissists are made,
Mhm.
she says it's kind of like one of two things. It's either
Oh, wow.
that the child was made to feel as though they were not special and important, and so they're deeply
Mm,
insecure, and as a mask for that, they develop these narcissistic tendencies to make
boy.
themselves feel more important. Or she said the other one is parents who teach their children that you are more special than everyone else, that you don't have to
Wow.
stand in line, that the rules don't apply to you. And I was like, that's 100% the cult of
It's
Cox right there.
well, right.
But it's
And then
also
how many
the church
more?
culture in general.
Right. It's so that's what I'm saying. It's like it didn't affect you like it did your cousins, you know?
Right, but so
It's
there
so crazy how the dynamics just,
yeah,
you know, differ.
I just
My
wanna
God.
say, like, as always, the majority of people who are members of the LDS Church are good,
Mm. They
kind,
are.
loving people who are just trying to do what God wants them to do. That is the
Mhm.
majority of the members. Like, I would even go as so far as to say, like, 90%, right? And then there's like the 5% who are there because they have easy access to impressionable victims and they are literally there
Mhm.
as abusers because it's easy to abuse people that way.
And
And then there's
right,
this
they've been
other
doing it.
5% that believe that they really are better than everyone else and they forget to take the lessons from Jesus Christ of humility and of
Right.
submissiveness and kindness and gentleness, and they just forget that that's a thing that we also teach, you know.
It's
So
just sad.
most of us are like, you know, we do believe that we belong to the one God's one true church, but that doesn't mean that we're better than anyone else. It's like we believe that that means that we have an obligation to share with other people, you know, rather than just
Yeah,
thinking we're better than everyone.
and it's so different for each individual as
Yeah,
well. Because I mean, I hear that, I hear what you're saying, but I don't see that. That's where it's usually different. That's where I can say, yeah, what they're doing and what they're saying or not, or what that person is doing, what that person is saying, they don't line up. And that's when
right.
I can find an inconsistency, and that's when I'm like, "Flag, flag," you know?
Well, and also I have to point out too, the members learn this from the leadership of the church
Exactly.
because
If
the
it's
leadership of the
like,
church, their
they
words
don't
and
pay
their
attention.
actions don't match. Like they say from the pulpit all the time, we welcome visitors. We love the LGBTQ community,
Yeah.
but their
"Did you get your temple
policies reflect
recommended?"
something completely different, you know?
Yeah, they don't even want it in their own congregation when you really look at it because they have, okay, you have your more, your more blessed people, they have temple recommends, which that in and of itself is a secret society. Amen, okay?
Yeah.
You got your card, and you have to anyways, it's just so many ways that people are exploited, and it bothers me. It
Yeah.
it it bothers me a great deal. It's like,
It does me too.
uh, people I've had people say, "You got this all wrong," and maybe so, maybe I do have it all wrong. I don't even try to pretend like I have it any kinda right, okay? I usually just spout things out. I try to size things up. I don't try to hurt people's I don't. I really don't intentionally just, like, set out to hurt people's feelings, or I never wanted it bothered me when I was like, "Oh my god, what I'm gonna say is not gonna be favored by a lot of these people." I mean, this is the Mormidor, straight up. I mean, and this is Mormon. This is a Mormon story. This is Mormon true crime. This is, or it is now, or it always should have been. It should have never been brushed up under the rug. That's
Yeah.
why we are where we are now,
Yeah.
because things have been so hush hush. Everything's great. We're great. Nothing to see here. It's all about looks. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So
And
I
it's
wanted to get
time.
back to Summer and Janice showing up in court because I really can't understand why now, you know? That's my
I
question. Is like after everything that has already gone on, and Summer obviously had to testify in. Did she testify in Chad's trial too? I don't think she did,
I
right?
don't think so, no.
Yeah, it was just Lori's
And it
trial.
bothers me that everybody heard her her crying. Who wouldn't cry to their damn sister? I would
Yeah,
cry too, but that
yeah,
doesn't mean that's she's, "Oh," you know what I'm saying? It's like people
right.
don't look past that, and
It
I'm
doesn't
just like,
absolve her of
"What?"
responsibility.
No. I mean, I would cry too, and it's just I don't what do you make of this, though? Let me hush so you can finish.
No, no, that's fine. I wonder if Summer was on the witness list or if Janice and Summer were on the witness list for Lori and Chad's trial,
Yeah.
and if that's the reason that they didn't show up. But Janice lives in Utah, so she would have had to travel for this hearing. So I
Oh,
just
wow, yeah.
I'm just curious about like why now, you know?
Mhm.
Um, I'm sure that there is a lot of cognitive dissonance for, you know, for Janice about the whole thing. Like I can imagine it would be really difficult, and we can all sit here and speculate about what we would do, but really none of us knows because it's an unimaginable situation, right?
Right. Or were
So,
they more involved and they're, like, trying to butter up, like that old
well,
bread you were talking about?
here's the thing that I am looking forward to in this particular trial is I want the receipts of
Yeah.
their involvement. Janice, Barry, Summer, anybody else who was there
Watson Pearl, yeah.
went before and after Charles was killed, because there was definitely conversation. We've already seen some of the conversations that have gone on. We've seen some of the text
Same day.
messages. We know some of the timeline. We know some of that. And
Yeah.
so I just wonder, you know, I don't know. That's what I'm most
It's
looking forward to,
sad.
is getting the answers to those questions, because if time and experience has taught me anything, it's that I
Mm.
cannot trust what anybody in the family says about anything. Not that they're necessarily all liars, but some of them are.
Yeah.
And the
Or
other
they're
part of
okay
it
with it.
is that when we do get little snippets of the truth, there could be family members who are passing on little snippets of the truth, adding
And
their own
thinking.
information to it or
Yes.
their own conjecture. And the
Mhm.
the problem is nobody has the full story. And
Exactly.
so this is the way that it was growing up the entire time, with any information that came to us about what was going on with the Cox family or their family stories or whatever. And
Mhm.
I think I've said before, like I've learned more truth about that part of the family from
Yeah.
reading FOIA docs and from reading court documents than I ever
Right.
got from an actual in person or even on the phone or via any other mode of communication with anybody in that part of the family.
Right. And while I don't think that everything is my business, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know there's things I don't wanna know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, in a family system, like, I don't ever poke my nose in, you know? Somebody has to be, like, dragging me into it. Like, when Uncle Charles would come in with JJ, you know, right before he was murdered. I didn't know that was gonna be the last time or the only time, you know, that
Yeah.
I captured JJ on the bus with Papa Larry,
Mhm.
you know? I didn't know
Yeah.
all that stuff, and they didn't none of us did.
Yeah.
I hope not, you know, I hope none of us did, but it's so
The other point I wanted to make as well about Summer and Janice coming to court is
yeah,
that um, Lori obviously was telling the whole family that Charles was having an affair and that they shouldn't talk to Charles. And this is like a very typical discard move by Lori, where she would make up a story about whoever she didn't like and then tell the
mhm,
whole family not to talk to that person anymore,
it's
because
so
she didn't
sick.
want people getting the, you know,
You
both
gotta be on
sides of
my
the
side.
story. They
Yeah,
just wanted she just wanted them to have her narrative of the story. So it's
but
very likely.
Did Barry give his blessing to Chad and Lori in St. George the first time they met? You know,
Well,
or is that
yeah,
just a rumor? Like,
I don't
I
know.
want that makes a big difference to me. To
To
me,
me
like, she was
to me
married
it
and he
doesn't.
was married.
No, to me it doesn't, because to
To me,
me,
it's like saying, "I
Lori was.
approve of this message," or something, you
Yeah,
know,
I
and
approve this message. Well,
it's giving her the go ahead to be an asshole.
yeah, But the thing that I think about is, I don't necessarily think that Barry, especially not in public, would have ever said like it's okay for you to go be with this other man while
Mm,
you're still married or
yeah,
whatever. To me, I don't think Lori needed Barry's blessing because she was going to do what she was going to do regardless
right?
of who anybody said about it.
Yeah.
And the thing that I find telling as well is that, like, when she moved to Idaho, none of the family members knew where she was going. She just left and she didn't tell anybody. And that's a very on brand for Lori too. Like, if she didn't want people to know what she was doing, she would just
Mhm.
not communicate with people.
She would go.
So I think that it's very likely that at the time that Charles was killed, Summer, Janice, Alex, Adam probably all heard Lori's version of events. And I guess all but Adam, believed Lori that Charles was having an affair, and were angry with Charles on behalf of Lori and wanted to protect Lori. So I can understand where, when things went south, I'm sure Lori and Alex did not tell the rest of the family what their
Yeah,
plans
the
were,
rest of the
or
story.
maybe Alex did, because, Alex did talk openly about hurting Joe because, he was so angry at Joe. So maybe they did. I don't know, but these are the questions that
I know,
I want to know.
I
These are
know.
the things I want to
This
know.
is gonna be a tough trial. I mean, already just because I didn't realize this till we finished in Idaho, and then I was like, "Oh god." I've actually been, like, avoiding alcohol trolls, as far as, like, this is harder for me. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because I have a longer history with my uncle or what. I mean, the kids, of course, that's come on now. But this is my uncle, and I don't know, it's just a really soft spot for me, and I'm having a really hard time with it. It bothers
Yeah.
me
Yeah,
a
for
great
sure.
deal.
It's Yeah, of course. And to add insult to injury, now we have to watch Lori put on a show and,
Make a
grandstand
joke
and
or
be
yeah.
insufferable and make a mockery of the whole proceeding and all of that stuff. I do think the judge is going to keep a pretty tight leash on her, which I'm
I love
grateful
him.
for because he's very no nonsense so far.
I love
But
him.
just to talk about, what the title, do you want to talk about the title of your video and actually talk about this part of it
Right?
now that we've been talking for an hour?
We've been talking about literal damn demons, okay?
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, definitely, go for it,
So,
because I really don't
um,
know where to even start.
well, I did a video about this too. So this is the latest motion that Lori has filed. Her motions are all handwritten and very badly spelled, lots of bad grammar, etc. And that's always fun to talk about. But the meat of what she's saying is that her Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial has been violated because the time for a speedy trial is
Mm,
150 days in Arizona, or if it's considered a complicated case, it's 270 days. She says we're now at like 315 days or something like that. So what she's saying is a trial has been set in the Charles Vallow matter, but not
oh,
in the Brandon Boudreaux matter. So she's
thank you.
asking for the Brandon Boudreaux matter to be completely dismissed because her speedy trial rights have been violated, quote unquote. And I actually, after I did my own video about this, I had a very kind lawyer comment on my channel
Oh my
and
gosh,
tell
right?
me that there are some special circumstances where
They did
the
this in
speedy trial
Idaho.
rights can be
Over
not
yeah.
violated, but they can go over the time. Okay, so their speedy trial exclusions. Rule 8.4 says that if there's a calendar issue or if there are continuances or if the defendant causes a delay, then
Maybe
that time,
incompetent?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, for example, Lori's Rule 11, where they had to stop proceedings in order to reevaluate her mental health,
And then
all of those
firing
things
squad.
can create an exception
Mm.
or an exclusion to the
Mhm.
speedy trial and can add time onto that. So I'm sure that's probably what Judge Boreski is going to rule. I'm sure they'll probably have to have a hearing about it, although one hasn't been set yet, as far as I know. Um, but I'm sure Judge Boreski is going to deny her request to have her her
I
case
think so.
dismissed because it's just ridiculous. They haven't violated her
People
constitutional
want all
rights.
day long.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. But it's just and I mean, a lot of defendants do this. I mean, this is just
yeah,
kind of a par for the course, you know? I mean, just from I'm not a professional, but just from observing.
yeah,
I don't know a great deal about a lot, but, it seems to
yeah.
be like, "Oh, yeah, let's try."
She's definitely playing the game, right?
Mhm.
So if you look, Justin Lum actually did an episode, or he posted a YouTube video where
Yeah,
he interviewed a defense attorney talking about her latest motion and her representing herself and all of that stuff. So they speculated that probably Judge Bresky's not going to grant this request.
yeah.
But if you look at have you looked at the actual motion that she filed?
No, I can't read that damn handwriting, so I just
Okay.
listen to you or, I go and listen to all the people.
Well, I can share my screen if you want,
Okay, yeah,
and show just so your channel people can see
definitely, thank
what it
you.
looks like. I always go to Justin Lum on X because he's been with this the whole time, and he's always going to do a really good job of presenting all the info.
Yeah,
So this
don't
is
judge.
the visual of it. Defendant Daybell requests this court to dismiss the Brandon Boudreaux case. I just won't read all the numbers, right? And then she states the facts as defendant was extradited from Idaho on November 30th, 2025. That's in the future. The defendant was arraigned for 2 separate charges on December 7th of 23. The trial date was set at that time for a speedy trial on April 1st. Speedy trial conference. Oh, must commence within 150 days.
Okay,
Sorry, I have trouble reading it too. And then the next page, the judge deemed these charges complex. Let's give the state 270 days. The new trial date was set for August 1st, 24, with the
sorry.
last possible day, September 2nd, 24. Number 6, the former defense team filed a motion for continuance, which that's one of the exceptions. If they file for a continuance, then we can add time onto the speedy trial timeframe.
Right.
Um,
Judge
but it was
Boyce, I mean,
granted.
he went over her speedy trial in Arizona I mean, in Idaho,
Yeah, exactly.
where
So then number 7, so then the trial date was set for February 24th of 25. Then number 7, a Rule 11 was also filed by former defense. And Lori actually says back in number 6 that the defendant objected to on the record. She did not want a continuance, but it was granted anyway. Then she also didn't want a Rule 11, but it was granted anyway. And in number 8, she puts in all caps and underlines, it has now been 314 days since the defendant was arraigned.
she
And
must
then
have
on
got
January,
mom's, victim impact statement. Mom did it in days. Just saying.
right,
Just
yeah.
reminded me of that.
And
Sorry, go
then
ahead.
January 10th, Judge Boreski declined to set a trial date. So if you saw her last hearing, she just casually asks, so what are we going to do about this other matter? Are we going to set a date? And the judge says, well, we have to get through this trial first before we can set a date on that
Yes,
trial.
Lori, order.
Okay,
Order.
so what I find interesting about that question, though, is that she asks it very casually, and this is something that manipulators do, y'all. Look at the date on this motion, January 8th, 2025, at the bottom of page 4,
Mhm.
January 8th. This was already written when she had her hearing on January 10th. So she
Mm.
already knew she was going to make this argument. And she just very casually asked the judge, hey, are you going to set a date on that other thing? No? Okay, well, that's no big deal. Don't worry about it. I'm just
Yeah,
going
I
to
did
file a motion against
turn
you.
this in, right. What a
Yeah.
bitch. I'll say it, what a bitch. A
Yeah.
bitch.
So anyway,
Mm,
that's basically the crux of it.
that is a bitch move.
And then trial date on number 10 has been set on March 31st for the Vallow case only,
No, that's
underlined
jury
in caps.
selection, boo. It's jury selection, so write her back
Yeah.
and tell her
So she
no.
says it's the position of the defense that no trial date has ever been set for the Brandon Boudreaux matter. This alleged case occurred over 5 years ago. The state of Arizona has had plenty of time to figure this out.
That's bad. She does a
Yeah.
lot of emotional, language,
Mhm.
like, I feel, I think, I believe, it's never like, I whatever, I
These are the
command you,
facts. Right.
anyways.
Yeah, real
I'm like,
attorneys
"Man,
don't really talk like this in their motions. Having
no,
seen many, many motions by many attorneys,
maybe."
unfortunately.
Oh.
So then she
Hopefully,
goes,
you don't
I'm
ever
gonna
have to
skip
hire her.
over. Yeah, right. Um, so I'm gonna skip over some of her histrionics here.
I'm sure a
But
lot of us have already
basically, page 4, the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution declares, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial. And then she cites a bunch of rules and stuff, which I've heard other attorneys say that these are, some of these are the right rules for her to cite. However, she doesn't really
very
have a case here because there are exceptions to the speedy trial rule. So that's pretty much
right.
it in a nutshell.
Just like her doctrine, it's just, tit for tat.
Yep.
It's karma sometimes, it's just like, bam. I don't know, I mean, she, pays attention somewhat, but she also, I think, gets a lot of help from her side, the attorneys.
Yeah,
It
her
seems,
advisory.
I thought it was awful, like, bratty or I don't know, whatever it is, for her to just be like, "No, I figured you'd make a couple copies." Like,
Right. I figured you'd do
girl,
that. I mean, could you
what?
maybe ask, would it be all right,
Yeah.
judge? Would you I don't have access to a
Yeah,
copier.
I'm
Would you
sorry, I
mind
don't have a
helping me out
printer.
with that? You know?
It's very righteous, you know? It's very righteous.
It's entitled. It's very
Mhm.
entitled. So
Yeah, I don't
I
have my
I
work.
actually have I'm gonna be doing a lot more videos on my channel about, narcissism and narcissistic personality traits, and I came up with a really silly acronym that I'm sure people are gonna hate, but I wanted to try and remind myself rather than trying to just recall all of the narcissistic traits, I wanted to come up with an acronym that I could remember.
Oh, okay, what you got?
And so I
Or you
did,
haven't
but
done it yet?
it's just no, it's just silly because it's one of those things that's like, I don't know, I'm not a clinician, you guys. I'm not, you know that.
Not yet.
I am a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have spent the last 10 years studying all kinds of different abuses and all kinds of different um,
Manipulations
tactics, healing modalities.
of the devil.
Oh, I just wanna pause really quick and give a shout out to the Church of Korihor. Thank you for being here. We were just talking about Korihor.
Woo-woo. Yeah, you must have
Um,
heard us.
those of you who don't know, there is a Church of Korihor, and he gives a godless sermon every Sunday, and I attended live for the first time today, and I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic and amazing. He talked about Carl Sagan and how we need to sort of look at the Earth as a little pale blue dot and realize how small we are in the universe. Anyway, it was lovely. I really enjoyed it so much. I hope you guys will all go check out the Church of Korihor and show up for his godless sermon on Sunday mornings at 11 Central.
Oh,
It's
it's
just
not
was
like a whole
wonderful.
afternoon or anything?
You'll get so much out of it, and then there's also, like, a little linger longer afterwards where you can chat. Joe, I absolutely loved it, it was amazing. I'm gonna stan that channel. Please, everybody go and
I'm gonna have to go check it
subscribe. Go
out.
subscribe to the Church of Korihor.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Joe's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah. Here's a from the book of Kresha, and it's called "Don't Be an Asshole," and it's just so easy. It's just so easy. Is that Korihor? Is it aligned with
Yes,
Korihor? As
that's awesome, that's
long
awesome.
as I'm aligned with
So
Lore Horror, we're good.
right, Laura Horror. So
Oh, yeah.
here's my dumb little acronym.
Not dumb.
Yeah, we'll have to post,
Oh, let's all
I don't
make
know.
fun of it then, come on.
I don't think I can post links in the chat, so it'll have to
You
be
sure?
Kresha or one of your mods that posts the channel for Church of Korihor.
Oh,
By the way, I just wanna say too, it's not just a church. They actually were out this last weekend passing out blankets to the unhoused people
oh,
in the Salt Lake area, And so all of their 100% of anything that you donate to Hellfire Agency, thank you, at Hellfire Agency or the Church of
That's
Korihor,
Joe.
100% of that, yeah, goes
I
to
love Joe. I just
supporting
didn't know it was
people.
for the corporate. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Sweet.
Supporting people in need in the Salt Lake area. I was very touched by seeing those videos of you guys going out and giving blankets to the unhoused, because I actually had that idea too of doing something like that during General Conference
Mhm.
and being like, look, Mormons,
Right?
this is what you could be doing.
Yeah,
Anyway,
this is how you be Christ-like.
too much of
This
a tangent.
Mhm.
I'm going to put my silly little
What's a
acronym in
Freemason?
the chat.
Oh, no. What's a Freemason? Look up Tim Ballard. Actually, he's a Knights Templar, so there's that. Woo!
Yeah, the Freemasons have been around for as long as this nation has been around, I think. It's a
As long as
top
sacrifice,
secret group.
basically.
Yeah, top secret group of dudes who get together and do secret handshakes, and they basically support each other
Yeah.
in business, in the community, keep each other's secrets, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So,
It's
okay.
pretty deep, y'all. It's pretty deep.
So here's my silly little acronym premiering
Go.
here right now for the first time.
Okay.
Ungleamy. So you know how we talk about Lori having like this veneer in public where she's just bubbly and super sweet and super kind and oh my gosh, I love you. Oh, thank you so much. You know, that sort of gleam. So
Love
that's why I'm
bombing.
like, okay, the real thing is though that they have this public persona, but the real them, the real personality is
Mhm.
toxic, right? And so this is how I'm going to remember this just for myself. Use it if you want. Make fun of it if you want. I make fun of it
You'll
too.
always
So it's
remember it.
very
That's all
silly.
that matters. That is all
Yeah.
that matters.
So the U stands for unable to accept responsibility. I don't know, see if this resonates with you as descriptors of people we might know, right?
Sometimes ourselves, so it's
Exactly.
okay. It's
All
okay.
these things from time to time. The difference
Right.
is most of us go, I don't like that about myself and I would like to change it, or I'd like to do less of that, or I'd like to be more whatever. Anyway,
Mhm.
so unable to accept responsibility especially for their own actions or anything that they do that's wrong or bad or seen as bad by society. The N is for needs constant admiration and validation. The G
I'm
is
sorry.
for grandiose. This is like the Lori claiming to be, you
I
know,
got it.
a goddess. Um,
Um,
L is for lacks empathy, like the inability to see how their words and actions affect other people. Um,
I'm
E
looking for it
is
again.
for
I'm sorry. I'm, like, trying to put it back. Oh my gosh, okay.
you're
I
good.
suck at this, y'all. Okay, go ahead.
E E is for entitled,
Mm,
believing that you don't have to stand in line, the rules don't apply to you, that you shouldn't have to go through the same things that ordinary people go through. A is for arrogant. Probably don't need to describe that very much. M is for manipulative. I is for insecure. And the last E is for exploitative. So I think that covers all of the sort of narky traits that there are. Um, the ones that I want to focus on anyway. So again, like you were saying, all of us have a tendency to be insecure from time to time. But
mhm.
where it strays into unhealthy or dysfunctional is when we manipulate people so that we don't feel that insecurity, or we build up coping mechanisms so we don't ever have to feel that
Yeah,
insecurity. So it's like, okay, I know that I'm a little insecure, and so rather than sitting with that uncomfortable
I'm
feeling
awkward.
and dealing with that and becoming more strong in my own sense of self, instead, what I'm going to do is pretend like I'm really not insecure. I'm going to pretend like I'm very
So
confident.
good.
I'm
Fake
going
it
to
till you make it.
pretend like I'm the biggest
Kinda.
person in the room. And that way,
Yeah,
other people will look at me that way too.
right, or yeah, that's their perception at least,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I
Now,
mean,
I feel like I need to put a P in there because the projection thing is a big deal too, but
well, here, I got it.
there's too many letters.
There's a whole slew of projectors right there, okay? Write
Yes.
it down. Tell your friends,
You're
okay?
missing who are you missing in there? Oh, you're missing Ruby Frankie in there.
Yeah, yeah, I gotta put her right there in the back.
When you
We're a little
do, let me borrow it. I'm actually preparing an episode right now on comparing
another
Ruby
one.
and
I got all
Lori.
kinds of stuff.
Oh my
I
gosh.
have
Whew.
look, I think she went to a free golf party, I'm telling you. And she's got white fingernail polish on, y'all.
I mean,
Anyway.
her eyebrows are on point, though. I do have to say that.
Well, some witches, they just got her like that sometimes. I don't know. They have time. They just probably perk up on their own. I don't know.
Pun gleamy,
Anyway,
trace on the case. Thank you.
what'd she say?
She said pun gleamy. Just put the P at the beginning and call it
There
pun
you
gleamy.
go. There you go. Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
gosh.
And then you end up with a whole bunch of this, okay?
Oh
Straight
my
up.
gosh.
You got some latter days Satanists, okay? I know. I'll
Hmm.
probably get sued for that. Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll have to go join the Church of Horror. And then no, here's the
Yeah.
freak off one. There's the freak off one.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling and this is a perfect example of a projector because the anti-Raffickers are the Raffickers. I mean, that's pretty projecto right there.
Totally. Totally.
Or you can
Yeah.
I made this.
Oh my gosh.
And
I
then here's Chad
also
and Tim.
that
Anyways, okay.
should be
I'm done.
Jason Mao's head on Moroni's body.
Yeah, well, I couldn't find him. Anyways.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, what was the
yeah.
other thing I was gonna say? It was something to do with
Something to I know, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no, you're
totally
fine.
need to go to
My
bed.
medicine is gone by this time of night, so I'm sorry if we're annoying people. I was just gonna say, you were talking about okay, so I saw the title of your episode, so we talked about constitutional rights violated, but you said we're
And once
fighting literal demons. What did you
that's
wanna
just
say
on the
about that?
title. I mean, that's just on the
Okay,
thumbnail. That's just me being silly, you know? I
gotcha.
mean, it's like we're fighting demons. We're fighting I don't know, whatever the hell's going on.
Tom
Whatever is
Harrison.
going on. Not well,
So,
no. That'll
did
work.
you happen did you happen to see the Mormon Stories episode where we talked about the house of my mother, Sherry Frankie's
I
book?
actually have not, and I can't believe that. Now that you say oh my god, I gotta go find it because I was
Okay.
like, "No, I'm gonna wait," and then now I waited too long.
So there's you didn't wait too long, just go watch it.
Yeah, but
There's 2
you needed
places in
it.
here, though, where she mentions Lori and Chad and the case, and she says that, like, one of the darkest times that she had was when right after she watched The Sins of Our Mother, which is the documentary about the case, right? And she went to a really dark place because she realized that Ruby was she had some of the same beliefs, the visions of glory connection, and she thought, okay, my siblings are in trouble, and one of them is going to die if I don't do something. And that's when she reached out to DCFS and started working with them really closely.
I'm proud of her.
And I'm really, really
Mhm.
proud of her too. But there were two things that I wanted to point out. Um, the couple okay, so she's talking about Chad and Lori here. So this for those of you who have the book or are going to read it, which totally everybody should. It's an amazing book. It's so incredibly well written. I'm so proud of the work that Sherry's done. But this is
Too.
from page 258. I believe the chapter is called True Crime. True Crimes. Um, and she's talking about watching the documentary. And she
Mhm.
says the couple, meaning Chad and Lori, were immersed in the same extreme religious beliefs and doomsday preparations as Jody and Ruby, and the way this family spiraled into darkness felt horribly familiar. Their intense belief in the second coming and their obsession with Tom Harrison's visions of glory prophecies. It was all the same stuff Ruby and Jody were always going on about. But it wasn't until watching that documentary that my hope faded into the darkest thoughts I had yet. Ruby and Jody were just as unhinged as Chad and Lori, if not worse. If we don't do something soon, my siblings are going to die. Um, so she says, she has a neighbor who was able to give her some information about what was going on. And she said, for years, I'd been pulled in two directions. One voice commanded me to be the perfect obedient daughter, putting my faith in supposed authorities. But another voice demanded that this time I think for myself. that I had the courage to disobey anyone or anything that tried to dehumanize me or those I love.
It's so sad, man.
Yeah,
Just the
super
body
sad.
bag thing, like her thinking that sh she was
That
gonna,
her
show up and her siblings would be in body bags.
Yeah.
That's got to stop.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
gotta
And then
stop, and
the other thing
before it gets to this point, or Melanie Pulaski is another one, notch in this spectrum, I do believe, because of those kids 2 of those kids, again, being, dubbed dark,
Yeah,
and wanting to inflict pain on them. This is generational. This is a group of underground people for sure, and it might
yeah,
go further out than that. I hope it doesn't, but, just trying to focus where it really is, where it's bleeding, okay?
yeah,
And we gotta stop it
yeah, totally.
before it's too late, before they end up, Lori, primary to prison, right? And she's just there to proselytize straight up,
Yeah,
and I mean, she ain't nothing, can't stop, won't stop, right?
yeah.
Oh,
So there's one other thing about the book that I wanted to touch on, because for those of you who haven't seen the super long 4.5 hour episode that we did on Mormon stories, but for this group specifically, um, because I get comments about this all the time where people say, oh, Mormons don't really believe in demonic possession, and we don't really believe what Chad and Lori were saying about that. And this is from Sherry's book, so I'm sorry that it's taking me a minute to find it, but I've got it marked, but I don't have it, just like ready at the ready over here. So I apologize. Um, but she talks about having nightmares when she was a kid. Um, So I'm so sorry, you guys. It's just taking me too long to find it.
yeah.
Um, and Kresha
Okay,
portaled
I got
out.
it.
So
I did it to where you go full I can't find the right, aspect, so I'm just I'm practicing, okay? I'm practicing,
you're totally fine.
but I
It's
can entertain everybody until you find it, trust me.
Yeah, please do, because it's going to
I've
take me a
got
minute because I don't
I've
have.
I've got nonsense for days, okay? It's raining outside, and, I mean, we can talk about all kinds of things. What you wanna talk about? Y'all, so I
Well, I
found
mean,
this video that I had screen recorded I mean, years ago now, but it was and I don't even know who it is, but it is a Mormon. Maybe y'all will be able to tell me who it is, but I was looking for it earlier, and of course I can't find it because anything I need on demand, I will not find. But it was someone who I guess okay, and I don't know what it's called, but whenever people in the church are sustaining the prophets or whatever, the leaders, and
mhm,
so everybody was like sustaining. It wasn't Nemo, but anyway, but this one guy, he was like he was not sustaining, okay? And I was like, "That's me in life in
it's
this
called voting
case for
opposed.
sure. I'm
Yeah,
always over the hell over here, all by my," and I'm just like, "Why I gotta be opposite?" I don't wanna be over here. It's not a popular, it's a very lonely, place to be because I'm just like, "Well, how come everybody's not seeing this?" It's so it's interesting how people just buy onto the narrative hook, line, and sinker. And I mean, I get it, this is my family. It directly affects my life. So that's my incentive. Other than that, I would not probably I'm pretty sure I can say that I would not have, uh, traveled this far,
yeah,
and just researching everything I possibly could over the last 6 years. It's been a lot. I mean, I've learned a lot of things. I've learned things that I can't unlearn. My whole world has it got real
yeah,
quick, and I will do like Tim. I will never I will never credit Lori and Chad for any any of this, like any understanding or whatever, because we were talking earlier and it's a blessing and a curse, I no, I don't want people to see this side really. It's really dark.
Yeah.
They're in a really dark world. It's very inverted, and I just feel for Ruby's kids. I feel for Tylee and JJ, and I feel for
Yeah.
all the kids who've had no choice in this, like, it just has to be one of the most devastating and betraying, feelings in the world, especially for a child. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, it bothers me a great deal, and so it means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to you, and, that's all, It's, and I'm glad to see Colby. I'm like, "Hey, okay."
Me too.
It's relieving. I'm glad. And it's not because I'm like, "Hey," you know, he's done this on his own, and so we all do this in our own way, and that's why and I think this will go into what you're doing as far as, like, doing the whole intervention thing. My
Yeah.
brother, he's in prison, okay? And he'll be out in 6 months, and I pray to God that, he follows his heart and and finally, breaks free from that life. Um, but, like, I forgot. But and well, what am I trying to say? Oh, the intervention thing. How Uncle
Yeah.
Charles, was arranging an intervention, and whether it's someone this is just me, so let me know if I'm wrong on this, Megan. But, like, if someone's an alcoholic, it's not gonna get me far to say, "You're an alcoholic, you need help."
Mhm.
N that's not gonna fly too well. That person has to want it, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
Just like with, someone on drugs, just like someone in a cult, it's not very constructive.
Yeah.
So you have like, there's constructive ways, and then there's those hurtful ways, right? Hurtful is just easy. We can just throw those words, okay? But it's I mean, you're wasting your time and your breath, and you're hurting people. I mean, you're you know what I mean? Like, let's try and show them by example,
Yeah.
It's takes about the same amount of time, just compassion, pass it along, right? That's that Mormon commercial I remember from a long time ago. Still stuck
Right.
with me.
Yeah, we were really good at making, cheesy commercials.
And I
Family,
bet you
isn't it
Gordon
about
Bowen made them. I bet you Gordon Bowen made
Yeah.
them.
Yeah,
Mm.
definitely possible for sure. Okay, so I finally found it. You don't have to go all full screen on me, I don't need that, but
I don't
alright.
know where to go. Okay, so till I
Did you
figure it
portal
out.
out again? Okay,
I don't
so this is actually from the very beginning of the book, and Sherry's talking about having it's a chapter called Mommy Isn't Very Nice to Me, and she's talking about how she used to have nightmares as a kid. Um, and she would go into her mom and say, like, hey, I want to sleep in here, my tummy hurts again. And Ruby would just be annoyed by that and say, there's nothing wrong with you, go back to bed. And she would say, no, Sherry, you need to learn to sleep in the dark. There are no demons in my house. She was wrong, of course. There was certainly one, talking about Ruby. um, then Sherry goes on and she says, as soon as the lights went out, others would appear, other demons, she says. Grotesque figures straight out of a medieval hellscape, demonic entities leering with twisted grins. Their contorted faces haunted my sleepless nights, their agonized stories playing out in my dreams. Why might a little girl harbor such tangible fears of demonic possession? I'm sure the deeply religious paradigm I was steeped in played a role. We firmly believe in Satan's power and the ability of his legion of fallen spirits to possess individuals. We believe that evil can inhabit physical forms, sometimes fleetingly, sometimes for extended periods. having been raised to believe the very air I breathed was thick with unseen forces battling for dominion over my soul, it was a small step for my young mind to imagine that battle raging in my own bedroom. So, all of that to say, people who want to tell you that mainstream LDS people don't believe in demonic possession, they absolutely do. And here is Sherry Frankie, who is, as far as I know, still a faithful member of the church, and Ruby, who was a faithful member of the church, and
And was a
Kevin, her
victim.
father, who was a faithful member of the church, openly talking about this, because what Mormons believe is that there was a war in heaven before we came to earth, where God said, I want everybody to have this mortal experience to prove their faithfulness. And Jesus came and said, or actually it was Satan, I guess, that came first and said, well, I'll make sure that everybody chooses the right, like makes the right choices. They won't even have a
CPR.
choice. Like they can only choose the right. Like there won't be a way for them to make a bad choice. And Jesus said, well, let them have a choice. And God was like, well, in that case, we're going to need a savior. And Jesus was like, I'll go do that job. And
She's
so
actually
what?
repeating from to let them know that, like, that's that video that's played, right?
Well, it was showed in the
With
God Makers. There's another cartoon about it, but this is
Isn't it in
literally
the
in the
temple
Doctrine and
too
Covenants too. Oh yeah,
or
it's in the
something?
temple. Yeah,
Yeah.
in the temple, the video they play in the temple. And then so we got to choose. The Mormon legend is that everybody who's on this planet chose Jesus's plan, because we chose to come to earth and get a body and have this mortal experience. And everybody who didn't choose Jesus's plan, they went with Satan, and Satan and his minions just became fallen spirits, and the spirit world is here. And so Mormons literally believe that Satan and his followers are here on earth as spirits, trying to tempt us to not choose, God and his plan.
See,
And the way
this
that they
reminds
put it
me
was
of
that it
Ruby.
was
Sorry. Go ahead.
the way that they put it was that it was 2/3 of God's children that chose
Mhm.
Jesus's plan, and 1/3 of God's children that chose Satan's plan. So if you do a little bit of math and you think about all the people who have ever lived on the earth or ever will live on the earth are 2/3 of God's children. And the other 1/3, that's a lot of damn demons, you guys, that are still just wandering around the earth trying to inhabit
Looking for
people's
a body.
bodies and, trying to tempt us away from doing the right things. It's a
Yeah.
lot
I
to
mean
take in.
it is, but it also makes a lot of sense, just and for sure in the context of this case and of Ruby Frankie and Jody Hildebrandt, of David Hamblin and David Levitt and Gordon Bowen and that Southern Utah Provo movement that has been here since Glenn Pace. That's where Glenn Pace memo came from.
Yeah.
And it was just uh, literally demonized, okay? It was, "Hey, let's slap a label on it." And so
Can
it
you
it just
can you
it caused
summarize the Glenn Pace
oh,
memo for those who may not know,
no.
like in
I
a
mean, I
couple of
just
sentences?
oh god, I suck at summarizing anything, but I know that he was a bishop who was tasked with having to well, he interviewed, like, I wanna say over 60 families who were plagued with this very thing that is going on right now, okay? And what he did, he turned the report in. There were some horrendous things in that report, sacrifices, casting out, these same thing that Lori and Chad, Ruby, Jody, and all these people were doing. And and then once Bishop Pace turned it in, he was sent, to another country to serve a mission, you know? Oh, I just actually I'm sorry. I hit the wrong button on accident. I
You're
tapped
good,
it.
you're good.
Okay. And, yeah, so, I mean, that's interesting all in of itself. It's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, let's just send you away." It just to me and then you gotta think about Tom Harrison's role in that whole thing too, where he has obviously, relationships or he's got access to the leadership in the church, where he is a sex therapist, okay, child sex abuse therapist, and renowned, right, at that time for sure. And he was trying to normalize, or he was trying to get the brethren to accept that this was a legit phenomenon. And I'm using that like, and again, I think that this is just my right now, where I'm at right now in my research. It's subject to change, you know, but it seems to me like Tom Harrison is another projector, not just an astral one. Okay. I
Yep.
mean, I really do think that birds of a feather flock together. And these people, they work in lockstep with one another, it seems. And nobody understands it but them. Uh, and whenever all this stuff came flying out, my family wasn't even important enough for people like Tom, who serves callings in the church. Okay. For people who are supposed to be men of God, followers of Christ, nobody from this ilk has done anything Christ-like to me. Ex Janelle, I gotta say Janelle. She is, she stands apart, but she really wasn't in the thick of it, but still,
Yeah.
that's the only person I really know that. I mean, there's a couple others that came forward. It's scary too for them. I get it. But I mean, I think that this section of people are in it. Okay. I think that they are in the LDS version of the Church of Satan. This is what they call themselves. This is what they name themselves, or the group. Okay. They go by the group, or we call them CS members for
Hmm.
the LDS Church of Satan, because there literally is a Church of Satan and they will sue you. Just
Yep.
saying. So, I mean, but there is an inversion. There's some really, I was reading over it again yesterday. The Hamlin daughters, Catherine and Eliza, and can't think of the other girl's name right, Rachel, and how they have been trying to hold their parents. And they've named 104, at least 144 other well known, or uh, more elite status, I guess you could say, members of the church who are part of this. And I believe that the Griffiths, which would be Ruby Frankie's family of origin, I think they would have to be in this clique, because if you look at Bonnie, Ruby's sister, she, with the whole blanket training, there's
Hmm.
just something off. Okay. And then Carl, what's his, I can't think of his last name. He's from Rexburg area, but he was married to a woman who, but then they got kind of caught up with Ruby Frankie and Bonnie and them. And they were doing weird touch parties involving peanut butter, allegedly. um you know? I mean, so
Just
it's like,
never
"No, we
ends.
don't do that." Or when Ruby says, I'm not a naughty girl. I'm not a naughty girl." I'm like, "Mm-mm." Or when Lori said that Satan has been chasing her since she was a little kid. Something is, going on there. I don't know if it's because Barry and Janice were temple workers. I don't know what goes on. All I can do as an outsider is just sit here and go, "Okay, well, there's this and this." And then, I have to kinda, and I really do, try to, I don't wanna just, this is the truth of Charles, Tylee, Tammy, JJ, and Joe's stories. This
Yeah.
means the world, because media, because all these documentarians, I mean, people are just running with this narrative, and it is not at all. It's like Tim Ballard with his propaganda movie, okay, Sound of Freedom. It's, if it, okay, it spreads what message? I mean, what message does it spread? What story does it tell if it's not telling it accurately, or it
Yeah.
does them no justice, in my opinion. So that's my
Yeah.
thing in this.
I just want to say that, this there's this pervasive idea in Mormonism that they're obsessed with sex. And the reason I say that is because there are so many rules around it and there's so much focus on it. If there wasn't so much focus on it and so much shame associated with it, then we wouldn't have all of these SA people in the church. Whenever you repress or shame normal, healthy sexuality, it's going to come out sideways. It just is. It is just the way that things go. So, all of these people who turn to all of these sick and depraved means to have access to people, to have access to children, to victims, who want to play all of these disgusting touching games, whatever it is, it's because they are ashamed of their sexuality
Mhm.
and they don't feel safe expressing it in healthy ways. And so
They
they
cross
try to sneak
boundaries and
around
mesh.
and they try to, yes. And then they find other people who are just as dysfunctional, who are just as filled
Mhm.
with shame. And then they
Well,
form a group and then they all try to get their needs met that way. And it's just sick. It's like the church creates these people because of
mhm.
the culture of shame and secrecy
Yeah,
around sex and sexuality.
it feeds
And
into it.
it's just not healthy to tell human beings who are designed to procreate, right? It's in
Mhm.
our genetics, it's in our instincts, it's what we've been doing for millennia, right? And you tell people
Control.
that they can't have any kind of sexual thoughts or feelings or actions at all outside of
Mhm.
marriage. And so it creates this really unhealthy
They
environment.
marry young, they
They
have
marry
babies
young
young. Right. Look at
and
Ruby in Sherry's book, how she explained about how, uh, that Ruby went to BYU to find her a husband, basically,
yeah.
and, I found that very interesting and very telling, actually.
Well, it's just so common. It's just so
Yeah.
common. It's
So what
basically
is leadership really doing? That's where I'm like, "W well, what are you doing?" Why aren't you, all the times that we're questioning, like, why aren't they coming out and speaking and excommunicating people now? Why do they wait till there's carnage? And then it's like the new school comes in, the new class or new generation comes in. Alwood Abraham Giuliani and Tom, they're old OGs or whatever. And then here comes the class of Daybell, and a road paved to hell, basically. And then the new gens are coming in, and it's just like it's a cycle and cycle and cycle. And it's not uh, look, I can't help it, but I just thought about how with Elizabeth Smart, when she was missing, the church, they were right there, helping and aiding in that.
yep.
But yet, when Tylee and JJ were missing, I heard nothing.
Yep.
That silence is deafening to me because why not use your platform, church, with your claimed 16 million followers to help find some of your members,
Yeah.
why not? That to me,
Yeah.
I was just like, and I was just I mean, so especially
I
learning about the LeBaron clan and how they had 9 women and children that were murdered at the border not long ago, 2018. Do you know that the church actually made a statement to those, I mean, at least a public statement, and acknowledged, um, the LeBaron I mean, the LeBaron clan, who they actually excommunicated, like, 40 freaking 50 years ago, and I'm
yeah.
like, "Why that" y'all X them a long time ago, they live in freaking Mexico. Why are y'all doing it that I was just like, "Why are they doing that?" But they can't call out, and, it just is so backwards to me. So
Yeah, I
backwards.
think the short answer to that is that the Smarts had money and
Mhm.
influence in Utah for one thing, and for another
Makes me
thing,
wonder.
I think that they didn't suspect the perpetrator to be
Mhm,
someone who
mhm.
was a member of the church. And because I think that the church knew already what Chad Daybell was up to and that he was doing and saying some really harmful things, and they didn't want to touch that with a
Mhm.
10-foot pole
I
because
think
then
you're right.
they risk alienating that whole group of people who are going to these special conferences and everything. So I
I
and I
think that's a
also
part
think
of it. I
I
do.
think that
I
they
wonder if
also think
sometimes they're in the same club, you know?
yeah.
I wonder.
And I also think that there is probably some sense of overwhelm that, like, if we talked about this case, then we'd have to talk about every case. And then we would just end up all the time talking about cases that our members are
Then
involved
Gordon
in.
Bowen,
But when, but
he's
when,
the one working the, issuing statements and everything, so it's like, I
yeah.
don't even want to mention my family's name,
Well, but
actually.
when children are missing, though, it just, this is another place where their words and actions don't line up. And this is another place where, actually, I've seen this comment come up a couple of times. Donnell Allen said that
I know it's good.
Cara Burrell recently posted a video where she has
The
a source
shadow.
close to church leaders that say that they're using a psychic and they're terrified of that information getting out. Well, guess
That's
what, you
already
guys?
been out, yeah.
Your psychic sucks, because
What
obviously
are the
you're not
brethren?
getting
They're
any
freaking
good
psychics.
information.
I'm like, "Okay, so they're going against Julie Rowe, but they're doing the same thing." And I'm just like, "But that's so weird." It's like, it's hypocrisy, and it's just like, well, it's been the learning experience of a freaking life, y'all. It really
Yeah.
has. I've been like, "This is weird," and then when you realize what's really going on and how, yes, they're, and I'm like, "Well, I guess you just have to be the prophet," you know? That's just the rule, and he speaks for everybody. But, and this, it really does, it ties into Freemasonry. It ties into the bigger picture. It ties to Diddy, it ties to Epstein, y'all. It does. I didn't do it. I'm just
Yeah.
following the money, and the money is
Yeah.
dirty, dirty, dirty.
Yep. If you want to know what is important to an organization, you look at what they spend their money on and you look at their litigation history. Who do
And
they
their action.
sue and how do they respond to the people who sue them? Those are two really good ways to tell
Yeah,
what
that's a
an
good way.
organization actually values despite what they might say in the public. And when you look at the Mormon Church, it's very obvious that they don't really care about helping people, because they claim to have given $1 billion to different charitable organizations. I'm like, okay, what about the other 249 billion? We're buying up land in Florida and Nebraska.
And why?
We're spending $50 million building temples in places where there aren't enough people to staff the temples, let alone
Or
enough people to
or
go to
open
the
them up
temples.
whenever it's cold.
Right. And we're
That's
not
the
we're not out
point.
here setting up warming shelters, letting our churches be used as warming shelters for
Yeah.
the people who need it in our very own community. We're not alleviating child hunger in our own nation. We're not taking care
No.
of our own members who are destitute throughout the world. It's very obvious where the priorities of the church
Yeah.
are when you look at what they spend their money on.
And it's sad, but it's true, and, I mean, you don't, anybody who is, committed to a system or feels trapped by a system, even, or whatever, in the system, in a system, it doesn't even have to be this one. I mean, it kinda goes with all of them, I do believe. We're giving them power. If we don't show up, they are nothing, like, if
Yeah.
you're not there to, buy their jets and everything, then, they can't look down at you.
Yeah.
Um, and anyway, so we give people power in
Yep.
which they, have been enslaving us, really.
Yeah.
And I mean, it goes to what Tim Ballard says, that Elder Ballard told him and Ken Krogh, allegedly, that, if you don't start this nonprofit, OUR, then in 10 years, you'll be slaves. And I'm like,
Yeah.
project much?
I wanna highlight what Trace on the case is saying. She said, this is a quote from her pastor today. "It seems to me it's not a good gospel to convince a child they have a sickness they do not have and then offer them a cure they do not need for a sickness they do not have. And in so doing, in the soul of that child, create an illness that they don't deserve, an illness called shame, religiously induced spiritual shame. It is good news. It's a gospel, though, to celebrate with every child their innate belovedness and then to encourage them to live their life out of that identity of love, following the rubric of Jesus' baptism and his inherent belovedness." And I love
Wow,
that. And I feel like that this
that's
is
good.
what many churches do, not just the Mormon church, but the Mormon church tells you what's wrong with you and then
And
tells
then
you
has
that they're the only
a
ones
solution.
who they're the only ones who can fix it.
It
And
it
they make
goes in,
you
what do you call that? Whenever there's the abuser and they abuse, and then, oh, it's like, some unhealthy bond
Stockholm
that's
syndrome.
created. Yes, it's
Yeah.
that.
And it's what Sherry Frankie, when Sherry Frankie appeared before the Utah legislature to basically say that there is no ethical way to be a mommy
Mm.
vlogger, to show your minor children because they can't consent to it. And some children may say, "Oh, I
Oh.
like this work, I enjoy it, I'm getting paid well," but they basically have Stockholm
Can't
syndrome.
consent. You can't consent because you're a child, first off, and if you can't consent, that's this whole human trafficking thing,
Yeah.
and so you're a child, but then you have Aunt Bonnie over there after Sherry's book comes out, and Bonnie's like, "Well, and I respect her experience, yada, yada, yada." You're doing it too,
Yeah.
You're doing it
Yeah.
too, and I believe this is where the church is profiting off of this form of, um, exploitation,
Yeah,
because they get the
exactly.
tithing, and it's like
Exactly.
shell companies, it's like the front companies, it's like the front businesses, and then there's some really serious, sinister shit going on behind the veil, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is because I don't wanna know, first off, but evidence from, the body bags, in my family for sure, there's 3, and so that's pretty good evidence that, their fruit is rotten. So,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know,
And I
I just
I I just wanna mention too, last week, on Latter Daily Digest, we had a really excellent Tuesday with Tim where we talked about spiritual abuse, and Lila
mm,
Tiller was on, and she's
I
collecting
like
people's
her.
stories of spiritual abuse, and if
Mm,
anybody has one that they would love to, I'd love to connect with you. You can email me at askmegan with
yeah,
2 E's at gmail.com. And it's the reason too why I say that when I finally
mm,
left the church, I literally felt shame leave my body because
um,
I no longer had to try and fit myself
I'm
into
so
this
sorry.
tiny box
I
where
mean,
I
I'm
didn't
sorry you
fit.
had to go through that. Ugh. Oh, I'm sorry you had to go through that, Megan,
Yeah,
and
but
any and
it
everybody
was
else
shame for
too.
such a long time. That's all. Like I was ashamed of who I was because I got told all the time
What
that
was wrong with
there were
you?
parts of
Or
me that were completely unacceptable in Mormonism, and I had to pretend they didn't exist, and so I was ashamed. I was ashamed of who I was. I was ashamed of my body. I was
proving your
ashamed
worth.
of my intellect, my mind, because I was constantly questioning things, and that wasn't acceptable. It was
Yeah,
just my whole life was full of so much shame because the church taught me to be ashamed of who I am.
yeah.
So,
It's
I'm
just,
glad I'm out.
me too, and it makes me think of Tylee,
Yeah.
I mean, she was just at that age, and it just I can imagine, the way that happened, I don't know,
Yeah.
it can really I don't know, some days I really just, I guess I hold there, and I just need to go through the emotions and everything, and I mean, and I'm just an outsider, just trying to understand. So I know it's anyways, the truth would be horrible.
Yeah.
Is horrible compared because of everything.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm so tired. I'm like,
I am
"Meh."
too. I need to go ahead and jump out, but thanks for letting me come on tonight. I always learn so much whenever we talk because you've done so much digging
Mm,
into corners I haven't had a chance to get to yet. So,
I did it so you don't have to, and then you do that part
yes.
so I don't have to, and so
Yeah,
the
exactly.
teamwork makes the dream work, okay?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're not in this alone, so I that right there in and of itself is a freaking relief, it's like a
Yes.
trust fall.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah.
you, and sorry that you're going through this, and I'm sure you feel the same, I'm just
Yeah,
it
totally.
really sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks. But yeah, you can be the courtroom cousin, what do you call it? Correspondent, CCC.
Yeah. Yeah. We
y'all.
definitely will get together
Mhm.
and again, and yeah, I mean, you and I are on the same page, you know, it sucks that we have to go through this, but I'm glad for you, I'm grateful for you, I'm grateful for Kay and Larry, and I'm just
And for
looking
this
forward
platform,
to
right? Just to be able to I mean,
yeah.
this talk therapy is really helpful, okay? I'll tell you that right now. I feel like I need
Yeah,
to pay everybody here. I do.
yeah.
I'm just like, "How
Makes
much
me
do I owe ya?"
well, it makes me feel like I'm not crazy, you know, like, I'm not the only person
Oh,
who
Janine.
feels this way. Oh, yay, Janine. Good
I'm so
memories of being with you in
sorry.
Rexburg.
So sorry about Clint.
Oh, yeah. That was so sad to see, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm right here. I have a hard time with, like, the whole death thing, okay?
Yeah,
I'm just so glad you're here, and I love you, and we love you, and thank
yeah,
you for everything that you've done and do. It means the world.
yeah, thanks, Janine. You're a good person.
Yeah, we're
Love having
here.
you.
Beautiful, beautiful lady.
Yeah,
Remember when I
so
picked
sweet.
you up, Jean? I mean, Janine? I was like, I picked her up. Anyways, I
Aw,
just was like, "Okay, awkward, gotta be awkward," so anyways, love you. Oh,
yeah,
oh, sweet.
that is really
Well,
sweet.
if
That
there's
warms my
anything
heart.
that we can do, just let us know. We're
Yeah,
we're here.
yeah, just know.
We here, we've been here, we ain't going nowhere, right? I hope not.
Yeah.
But,
All right, Krisha, I'm gonna jump
yep.
out. I'll let you say goodnight to your people. I'm gonna say goodnight to my people. Thanks for being here. Thanks to the mods. Thanks for everyone
Yeah,
who is commenting and supporting. Go subscribe to Krisha's channel if you haven't already.
right
Go
here.
like and go support her. Um,
Appreciate it.
she does great work.
And
So love you.
and let me reciprocate there, okay? Do the same.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Bye, guys. Love you. Love always wins. Justice for Tylee, Charles, Tammy, JJ, and Joe. Bye.